shame. It's no love, no love, no love. How you gonna survive in this game? It's no love, no love, no love. All we see is the pride and the pain. It's no love, no love, no love. And I wonder, will it change?
It's Creative Collection, and got our special guest today, New York dejure, and we're gonna be getting into a lot of educational things about law and learning some new things, especially for all of us here. We definitely new to some of these things, some of these constitutional things, things about rights that we need to know about. So, like I said, this is what can make it better, and I'm starting it off today. We got royalty in the building. We got Squeaky in the building. New York dejure. So, Squeaky, you want to warm it up?
We have our questions ready, and if everyone wants to introduce themselves and go one by one around the room, that would be awesome.
Andrea, you want to kick it off?
I figured you start. You were first. You're the first box, but I have no problems with it. My name is Andrea. I'm the New York de jure Assembly Secretary. I'm also a member of the Kings County Committee of Safety. Both of them are important. One works on a state level. One of them works on a local level. The reason they're important is that we all know that politics starts on a local level. So we got to make sure that we have our voices heard locally and statewide. And with that, I yield. Sam, you want to continue?
Sounds good. Thank you, Andrea. Hey, everybody. Thank you for having us. My name is Jam. I'm the first IT chair with the New York de jure Assembly. I'm also the public relations officer for the Kings County Committee of Safety. So I work on the state level as well as the county level, as Andrea mentioned, because they're both very important. Starting the politics on the local level is absolutely essential. And we're looking to lawfully form all of our counties, 62 counties in New York State. So downstate, we have a lot of counties already formed, which is amazing, like Queens, the Bronx, Brooklyn. We're working on Richmond. We're working on New York County. And what I assist with is essentially helping out with the website, helping out with social media, coordinating with beautiful people like yourselves to get podcasts and get educations out there going, working on getting events so we can get education out to the people, because all of the education that we provide is free. It's for us and by us. And we're just looking to have people, wake up and protect themselves, and most importantly, protect the future generations and protect our children. I yield.
Peace to the room. Thank you so much for having us. We are excited to be here. This is Taneri, like Canary with a T. I'm one of the New York de jure Assembly members as well. I'm also the Kings County moderator. So I pretty much just, specialize more so in recruiting, spreading the word. I assist Jam with public relations, video content, and just kind of anywhere really that I'm needed. We're really proactive in this, and everyone's 100% is, valid. And I'm just excited to be here and share more so that we can get more like-minded individuals on the ball. And with that, I land.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Joy. Most of you guys may know me from, working alongside New York Freedom Rally and a lot of the rallies and the protests. But I am extremely grateful and thankful to be a member of the New York de jure Assembly. I'm also the communications officer for the Queens County Committee of Safety, and a member. And it's just been a great honor to learn everything that's needed to bring back the power to the people. Queens is doing a lot of great things. If you are in Queens, reach out to one of us, and we'd love to have you on. As far as de jure and being a part of de jure, like I said, bringing power back to the people, it's imperative that we do so that, things go back in the right track. And, to like-minded men and women is just only going to grow this bigger. And allow for our freedoms to be respected. That's kind of one of the number one things that I see, de jure empowering people, to demand the respect for their rights. So, I appreciate you guys having us on here and having me here. It's a true blessing, and it's definitely a calling, and I look forward to more of this. Thank you.
All right. Well, we appreciate all of y'all coming up to speak on this because this is definitely important things going on, and it's definitely important people get informed about these topics because I feel like reviewing some of the notes that we have and stuff like that. I just feel like it's a lot of it's extensive knowledge that's not being shared out there. About legal things, and when you really look at it, you're like, wow, it's right there in front of us, but nobody really does that because nobody really pays attention to it because we think that we're supposed to be taken care of with certain things. So this is very important. How can we, the people, ensure that our country remains a constitutional republic if we weren't already to taking the oath and to uphold the Constitution and our unalienable rights are given by our Creator?
May I answer that one for you? One, you don't take an oath to the Constitution unless you're a public servant or been trapped by the system by becoming a naturalized citizen. You have your own natural creator-given rights just by being you. The people that are in the public servant offices, such as our mayor, city council reps, county execs, mayor, governor, AG, DAs, any of those positions, they take an oath to uphold and support the Constitution. The Constitution is nothing more than, the best way to explain it is a sample platter of your rights. Because if they would literally write down everything you have a right to do, it would not be enough. You have a right to breathe, you have a right to live, you have a right to eat, you have the right, so many different rights that it would not be able to be put onto that list. So it's basically, it's a sample platter given to those that take an oath to it to make sure they do not cross the line and start trampling on your natural given rights. If you actually look at the Constitution, most people know it as the Ninth Amendment, but in reality, it's actually the Ninth Article. It basically says that there are rights that you have that are not listed in this document, and they have to accept it and they need to protect it. It's basically one of the most blanket one on there, but it's also the most important one because so many people stick to, oh, I have a Second Amendment right. No, you don't have a Second Amendment right. The Second Amendment and the First Amendment and all those others are to tell those that are in office what not to do. You have a right to be you. You have a right to believe what you want to believe in. You have a right to eat what you want to eat. You have a right to dress how you wish to dress. You have a right to live how you would like to live as long as that does not interfere with the life of the next person. So that's where people get mistaken. Like a lot of people, you will hear a lot of people say, I have constitutional rights. No, you have rights. Period. End of story. The way we can bring it back to a constitutional republic is we need to shut down this whole, we live in a democracy. No. Thomas Jefferson said we live in a democratic republic. And the reason he stated that was because once they're up there in those elected positions, they do vote. However, the things that they vote on cannot in any way interfere or trample or hinder the right of even one person. Sorry, one man or woman. And that's how it's supposed to be. They're supposed to look at it and say, how does this affect every single man and woman? Does it cover everybody's rights? Does it hurt anyone? Even if it hurts one person. If it hurts one person, it's not even supposed to end up on the table. So the whole democracy aspect is once they're up in office, does not refer to us, right? Because the true meaning of democracy is majority rule, mob rule, right? Which means if it's good for 51% of the population, 49% could fall off the earth and they don't care. And that's not what we have here. What we have here is a republic, which means if one person is harmed, one man or woman is harmed by anything, the whole thing's going to get thrown out. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does answer the question. It does. It's
Yeah,
just
it does. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. It's interesting that it's just interesting some of the way that they put things because it's like we try to make it seem like a democracy is the thing to go for, and I think like what you're saying makes it make sense is why it's so appealing to the public eye. Democracy seems like majority rules, and that seems good, but like you said, it could be 51% ruling 51% that needs something, the other 49 not get it, which is terrible. So that makes a big difference.
Exactly. It's like the whole phrase with the greater good. Well, which side of the greater good are you on, right? The greater good may be okay for one side, but could be horrible for the other side. So to give you the best example, like stop and frisk in New York City, right? That went through democracy. How many people were harmed by that? The mask mandates, that went through democracy. All the mask mandate was just another name for stop and frisk in certain areas. That's all it was. But what happened was you had some people that were screaming for it, and then they're like, well, the majority want the mask. Well, then let them wear it. But that shouldn't mean that those that can't or don't want to, they're penalized. But that's not how
Right.
they look at it. So,
Just a quick question. Could you explain to, some of the listeners, how they were able to basically enforce, we're gonna call it the injection in order for certain individuals to go to work?
through fraud and manipulation and propaganda, I'm going to be honest, because what we saw through COVID was basically a replica of the 1950s sociological study that was done by the federal government during a tuberculosis outbreak. It basically was like a step-by-step plan. Tell people, oh, it's voluntary, then make it a mandate, then basically scare people half to death by saying, oh, if you breathe on your neighbor, they will die. Then they started giving out half information. If you notice throughout, once they got these shots on the market, almost every advertisement said they're FDA approved. They
Right.
never finished the sentence that said, "Oh, it's for EUA use, emergency use authorization." They never finished it. They just said it's FDA approved. And we've been conditioned throughout the decades and the centuries to believe that when something is FDA approved, it causes no harm and therefore it's safe to take. They also never disclosed that in January, right, January 18th, New York State DOH basically admitted that every product relating to COVID was still in EUA status. There was a memo that went out to all the administrators, right? That said all the
Right.
products are still EUA status and that New York is a clinical trial site. There were over 300 COVID-19 clinical trials in New York City. In New York, 63 of them pertaining to children. And nobody knew. Nobody knew because all they kept hearing over and over, it's FDA approved. It's FDA approved. And if you get this, you'll save your neighbor. You'll save your elderly. You save this. We had pediatricians go on Zoom with the DOE members saying that kids ages between 2 to 5 have to be masked because if they're not, they're gonna die. Did we suddenly see a sudden decrease in the population between ages of 2 and 4? I didn't. I know that would have made news. That would
Right.
have been on every single news channel. Kids between 2 and 4 suddenly dying, right? I didn't see that.
Nope.
So, and yet they made those claims, and fear is the biggest motivator.
And Andrea, the products that are still out there regarding this, they're still under EUA, correct?
Yes, I believe so. I'll have to double check because I know that the minute that the shot for the minors was approved, it kicked all of them back into EUA status according to the CDC. So
I just feel like
oh,
they just. Oh, sorry.
no,
You
go
saying
ahead.
something? I just feel like
No,
they
go
just
ahead.
try to drill like stuff down your head. Like they just try to just install you with this information and just like, okay, take this information. But then I feel like conversations like this and knowledge like this is important to start to get a view from looking at the notes and looking at the paperwork and stuff like that because that's where the information is. Aside from there being like commercials and stuff like that, where they tell you, here's this medicine, or here's this vaccine, or here's this whatever, and they don't tell you none of the side effects until like the last 10 seconds of the commercial. I feel like it's kind of like that, like a fine print thing.
Yeah, but the sad part is with the COVID-19 products, they really can't tell you all the adverse reactions because they don't know it yet. So how can you make an informed consent? How can you make an informed choice? Nobody can.
Right, because we are the clinical trials right now.
Exactly. Exactly. Even with ASIP, right? They're like, oh, we approved this product to go on the schedule, right? As a recommendation. But we wait to hear back all the results by whatever year. They just admitted that they're putting this product on the childhood schedule so kids get it, so they know exactly what the actual adverse reactions are. And people don't realize it.
That's horrible.
It is, we've been following it for a long time, and one of the biggest reasons that I'm so against any medical product, especially the ones they call the injection, is because in the United States we have no recourse when it comes to being harmed against that corporation. Even in China, they have it where if you get hurt by a product from Pfizer or Merck, you can go after Pfizer or Merck. You can't do that here in the U.S. They have immunity. They have
Oh,
immunity.
wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Even
That's really ironic.
I know, right? That's why I tell people, it's like, start opening your eyes. Like, the United States, Pfizer, Merck, and all those other companies have immunity from tort liability. And basically, if something happens to you and it's not on an acceptable adverse reaction list, you get nothing. You get nothing. Meanwhile, in places like China, that make pretty much all of our medications, because we've pretty much provided them, they make everything from penicillin down to probably Tylenol. Even they open that door for the men and women of China to be able to go after the manufacturers should there be harm. And I'm like, so why don't we get that here? But then we have our representatives that stand up and say, you should be able to sue Remington if you get shot by a gun made by Remington, because no industry should have immunity. Can you say hypocrite? So that's how they feed into the public. They're trying to make it that they're all out for your general welfare. They want to make sure that they're doing it for the public good. We got to hold the manufacturers accountable, because if Remington never made that device, you wouldn't have gotten shot. No, if you would have not cut billions of dollars from mental health, that person would have gotten the help they needed, and they wouldn't have had the need to shoot. How about we look at the bigger picture? You created the problem, and now you're trying to punt it onto a different industry to make you look good.
True. All right, we're going to move on to the next question, Roy.
All right, thank you, Squeaky. All right, so question 2 is explain how Articles of Confederation is more powerful than any constitution, and why isn't New York State under them anymore?
Actually, New York is under the Articles of Confederation because our first constitution was signed by self-appointed delegates. Therefore, it's an iffy of whether or not it's actually valid, since the men and women never really actually ratified our first constitution. The Articles of Confederation is more powerful because it actually puts more power back to the men and women. Everything has to go through the men and women before it can actually go to the representatives to be voted on, which means we actually have more of a right to go sit at that table and redline every budget, every bill, every idea, every resolution. We could literally, if you wanted to, we could send somebody up from every county or every district, have them chill up in Albany, sit down and be like, nah, before that goes on the table, let me look at it. Come on, give it to me. Yeah, I don't like this. All right, go back and redraft it. So that's the difference between the two. And especially with the way that, with all the shady stuff they've done in New York, where technically by law, the way a constitution is supposed to be amended is through a constitutional convention. But then they altered it, saying that as long as that proposition ends up on a ballot where you go to vote, it can amend the Constitution. So slowly what they've been doing to ratify it by the men and women is they've been adding small little changes, not major ones, just oh, he will represent he and she, right? It'll be both masculine and feminine. So people are like, yeah, I approve that. But now you just approved almost every clause in the Constitution, not just that little change.
So New York is still under the Articles of Confederation?
hmm The only reason we de jure use the Constitution is because of the fact that our elected officials take an oath to it. So we're going to hold them accountable to it, right? I'm not going to tell them, be like, you took an oath to a document that doesn't exist when I can use it to put them back into their box.
Right, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it seems like it gets very tricky, and it seems like they play on
hmm
semantics a lot. So I'm gonna move into this next question here.
I got it. I got the third one.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. How is the de jure exposing how the corporations are exceeding an unconstitutional hold over our republic?
Let's see. We at the de jure, first step we do is we basically contract their oath of office. And the reason we do is because when they get up there and they make that claim that they're going to support and uphold the Constitution, and on a national, because in Albany, their oath of office consists of supporting the U.S. Constitution and the state Constitution. And when they make that verbally and in writing, it's an open-ended offer, right? So what we do is we close that offer and say, okay, you made the claim, we're going to accept it, right? So we accept your oath of office, and now we're making it into a contract. So if you step out of your box, you're now breaching this contract that you made with the men and women of New York, right? That we at de jure have are speaking for. Because regardless of what side of the political aisle you're on, whether you're team red, team blue, team purple, team green, regardless of how you choose to live your life, your rights are yours. And that's all we worry about. That's all we care about, So we want to make sure everybody has their right protected. So we make sure that we accept the oath of office as a contract. We also provide templates on our website so that, let's say you don't want us to do it for you, you can do it with whoever's your that has an oath of office, by you, in your county, whether it be your county exec or in New York City, the mayor, the DOE, the DOH. In New York City, pretty much every person, and I call them persons because we are men and women. Every person that works for New York City, whether it be the mayor, the public advocate, the attorney general, not the attorney, the DAs, the DOH, DOE, they all have an oath of office. All of them. So, it may be something that only applies to you, and we as a collective can't, do it for you. So you now have you have a contract, fill out the template, you serve it on them. Now you have a contract between that person and you to make sure he does not overstep and in any way hinder your rights. Because if they do, now you can move to step 2. The assembly for step 2, we then write them a note. We write them a notice of violations with the opportunity to cure. And all that does is basically we tell them, it's like, look, we accepted your oath of office. This is what your oath of office said, right? You've now violated that by doing X, Y, and Z. Also let you know that the minute you violate your oath of office, you now lose the protection and the position of that office. And here is the actual law and case law stating that. And now you're impersonating that official that's supposed to be in that office. Now, if you want to keep that position, this is what you're going to do to fix all the stuff that you violated. So we give them a remedy. Like, you can keep your spot. You could be mayor, you could be DA, you could be DOE, but you got to fix your mess up. And if you do, right, we got no quarrels. We got no, you can stay there. You're cool, If they don't respond, then we go to our next one, which is we send them a default with opportunity to cure, which is us being in a way very courteous and nice, and we send them the notice with the attachment of the previous one, which is the violations with opportunity to cure, and be like, look, just in case it didn't get to you or you somehow didn't get a chance to read it or whatever happened, we all know we got things in life going on. We want to remind you, you still got a chance to fix it. right? And you still get to stay in that you stay in your little box, and we're not going to bother you. If at that point, right? But we also let them know that if they don't reply, we're going to we're going to use silence by acquiescence. We're going to invoke that, and that basically tells us that you're admitting you're guilty of every violation that's in this notice. So you have a choice. You either fix it, respond, or admit you're guilty. So if we don't hear back from them on that notice, then at that point we take it to the next level, which is the final default with consent to judgment, where now we can not only put in the violations, we have all of our notices attached saying we've given you more than enough time. We now also add in a true bill, because each violation on a federal level does come also with a monetary penalty. And we look at New York and say, okay, how many people were harmed by whatever this person did? And we make a guesstimate approximately, because unfortunately we don't have enough people in New York to go around and say, were you harmed by executive order so-and-so? Or were you harmed by the mayor's, emergency executive order so-and-so? So we make a logical guesstimate, and we tally it up and we send it to them. So not only are you now in violation of, being an imposter in that seat, which is in New York, now you're crossed over to criminal under the penal law. But now you're also in violation, and you are now have a monetary fine that now you owe to the men and women of New York. And then we serve that on them. We also see it to the people that are supposed to be in authority to hold them accountable, because we do not want people to claim ignorance, saying, oh, I didn't know he was doing that. We don't give people a chance to say, I didn't know. And our notices are being read because, let's see, the best examples I can come off with the top of my head. Hochul had an executive order 11 and 11.1 last year, where there was a discrepancy in how they were describing SARS-CoV and the variants. And there was like 3 different ones, because in one paragraph it was SAR without the S, CoV-2, and then there was SARS-CoV-2, and then there was AMI. So we called her out on it and say, are these 3 different types? Following EO, the typo was fixed, and they went back to, it was the order of the previous one. However, they made this specific correction. We knew exactly. It's like, all right, so they are reading our notices. When it comes on a city level, Eric Adams, unless it's a slip, we'll call it a shot now. The commercials have been cut by at least 50%. That's because we told them, you are basically calling this product something that it's not, and that's a federal violation. And every time you call it that, there is a penalty for it. And they are reading our notices because they are making those changes. Go ahead, Jam. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's okay. I was just going to mention that the fact that we actually do paperwork and document these things, like you mentioned, Andrea, they could just claim ignorance and say, oh, I didn't do that, or oh, how can you prove they did that, or any of those things, right? But the fact that we file this paperwork, it's a public record. So it's a public record for you, and it's also a public record for the people to see. So depending on how far you want to go with holding the public servants accountable, you have that paper trail, and you have that evidence to back up those claims that you're making. And of course, they never answer back, because no matter what, if they do answer, they're still guilty. They're guilty regardless, so they know. But that's fine. That just helps our cause along better, and we keep doing the work. I yield.
Honestly, I'm very sure that they read and look through all the stuff y'all saying. They watch the videos. I know this because you could just tell at this point. It's just like, there's no way you can't see the people coming up and speaking the truth on this level, and then saying, you know what, let me educate myself on it. Let me learn y'all language. Because I'm sure a lot of us didn't sit there and say, oh, yo, I'm a person that was born and thinking about constitution and stuff like that. I had to learn this. We had to learn this, and now we delivering this message to you. Like, how could you ignore something like that? I feel like they probably just play a game and just say, let me act like I didn't see it, maybe. But since you pay so much attention, y'all know they're listening and they see. That's great. I want to definitely appreciate that type of work because it takes a lot of work when it comes down to delivering these messages to them, these affidavits and stuff like that. Because it takes tenacity. It takes for you to be like, yo, oh, they didn't get the first one. Oh, they didn't see that one. Oh, let me do it again. Oh, they didn't get served. I gotta serve them again. It takes a lot of rundown game to do this.
And it takes power in numbers. We have committees that handle this. We have, shout out to the doc writing committee always. They're amazing. They're the one that draft up our docs. The body of the assembly obviously votes on them before they go out, but the doc committee really gets down in the trenches, does the research, finds out the contact information for these public servants, finds out their offices, etc., and they draft up and they look up the laws and they draft up these docs. So they're an amazing committee, and they always need more people. Like, we need people to be a part of this process, because I'm not just doing it for me. I'm doing it for everybody in the city, everybody that's being violated, which is everyone, whether they realize it or not. They're still stuck in their ignorance, but they are also being harmed. So it really comes down to the power in numbers and everybody doing what they can, whether you do boots on the ground, or you can help write a doc, or you can do, use your platform to promote education. There's so many things that people in the city could do. We're so powerful. So you just have to get involved and just start and just use whatever resources you have to get the job done.
Absolutely. It all starts with, all of those things are all about community building. So once you step into the community, once you start to come out your shell, once you start to focus on that and think about it a little bit, then you can start to find what makes sense, what can you do. It's just a community building thing. But if you don't, get with the community, or you don't think about the people, or you just think about yourself, that's when in the shell we stuck by ourselves now.
That's why we ended up in the situation they're in, because everybody was just focusing on themselves, not seeing the big meteor that was coming down on this city and in this country. And that's why where we are today, so hopefully this was a lesson to a lot of people to wake up and to start doing something, and to not just talk but actually do action.
They still didn't learn, trust me. They still think it's just about them, like it's just their family being affected, or it's just them losing their job or potentially losing their job, etc.
Well, yeah, we realize that a lot of people, look at it like they don't realize it until it's at their doorstep. But that's also why we, when we do our public calls, we let them know. It's like, you can write up an affidavit of harm, how you were harmed, right? Don't worry about your neighbor, how this affected you. We want to make sure that every voice in New York is heard, right? Right now we're concentrating on the city, but then, afterwards we're going to be concentrating, on every other county outside of the city as well.
Well, you know what? I think to be speaking that and bringing that out, it may take a second for people to gravitate towards it, because people don't realize that they do have a voice, that we do have a voice. We kind of look at it like the democracy, like you said earlier, majority rules. So where is my voice? If 20 other people like this, and I don't matter. And I think that's subconsciously what's been going on with people in this city and in the world too.
Then we have representatives in Albany that are trying to change our constitutional republic to a democratic socialist. We've all heard the DSA members. Oh, we want to become like France. Oh, so you want Biden to turn into Macron, and basically declare war on those that refuse an experimental product? Because that's what happened in France. So if you're going to compare, pick a better country. And then they look at you like, oh, you didn't think this one out, did you?
And I think now, at this point now, why I like what you're saying is because yeah, like the Constitution and stuff like that matters. Yeah, like whoever the president is, and the mayor and all that stuff, and who's ever under him. Yeah, that matters, but the people matter more. And I feel like this right here, what you're saying, is clearly showing that the people matter more, but the people simply don't know it. So this is important information.
Right, that's what I was getting to say.
Yeah, the best way I try to explain it to people is think of it like a company, right? When we elect these representatives, right, they work for us, because if it wasn't for us, they wouldn't be in that seat, right, at all. So we hire them. We're the CEOs, as well as the HR department, right? Somewhere along the line, I don't know how, but our employees think that they run the company. And we just kind of became okay with that, because we delegated so much work to them, and we sat back so much that we're like, they're doing such a great job running the company. Let them keep thinking that. But now they're telling us what our hours should be, when we can go where, things like that. So somewhere along the lines, our employees really got in their heads that they run our company that we established. Because if it wasn't for us, there would be no government. If it wasn't for us, there would be no mayor. If it wasn't for us, there would be no governor. And somehow they got it flipped. So we at the assembly were like, nah, we're more like the HR department. Like, we send them the notice and say, you got to fix your attitude. Stop thinking you run this ship, because you don't. And fix what you're doing wrong, because according to your work contract, which is your oath of office, right, you're not doing your job. And I think as an assembly of we the people, we're actually very courteous, because I don't know how many companies out there give you 3 warnings before they actually hand you a pink slip. So
Exactly.
And I think
Well,
people forget. I think people forget about like the language, and specifically like public servant. It's a servant. Like, people forget that. If you look at the history of civilizations, kingdoms, monarchies, since when did ever a servant say, "Okay, I'm going to dictate and say what the majority should do, and you all need to follow me"? When has that ever happened? It has never happened. Whether someone was a servant by force or not, they still did not have any power. So now we're taking these people that say they are servants, and then we're going to listen to them. It just doesn't add up.
it's just the psychology. It's really the psychology, because I could take it back to when they first said it's 15 days to start. We spoke on that before. It's 15 days to get rid of COVID. That's what they literally said. It's 15 days. And then after that, they had to come up with all these things, come up with all these commercials, come up with all these ideas and these schemes and all this propaganda to push it to 21 days. And they had to tell the people this to scare them, and fear mongering, and they use psychology to make us forget, like, wait a minute, we have way more power than we're acting like right now.
exactly. Like I said, fear is the best motivator. If you ever get a chance, look up the 1950s sociological study that was done on the entire U.S. population during the tuberculosis outbreak. And it was basically step by step, make it voluntary, make it mandatory, and then scare them half to death that you're going to kill your neighbor by breathing on them. And that's exactly what they told us.
Yeah, and this is all the more reason why we need more hands on deck. As a matter of fact, the very remedy that we found in the New York City Charter when it comes to unseating Adams and Bragg's district attorney required a minimum of 5 people. It's just that people forgot along the lines. It's been decades now that we are the CEOs and they are the employees, and we have not been obtaining any reports, which include, not limited to, budget, where the money is going, HR, administrative, and so on. So once we get back to having the mindset and the thought process, wait a minute, we are the ones putting them in seat to operate as they are. Once they take an oath to the Constitution, they have to abide by that box. And it's just one of those things where we got to get more people, got to get more of this exposure out there so that they can remember who they are as men and women of the land of New York City. Or New York, rather.
A beautiful analogy, because
Yeah.
I would have never put it that way, but you guys broke it down perfectly for the youth. So I have a question for Joy. Can you just break down what exactly is de jure for the youth that are listening?
This country knows, and the people that are in control, whether it's the politicians or whoever they think that they're untouchable, controlling the young mind is controlling the future, right? So with that in mind and keeping that in mind, what makes de jure powerful that the young men and women need to know in this day and age is it allows them to learn who they are, like it was stated before. You unlearn and relearn what's been taught to you. So what we've been taught in schools, and I, can testify to that, what I learned in school, and what I was raised with, that now I have to unlearn and relearn, was a dedication to this country. And so if I'm going to have a dedication to this country, am I going to have a dedication to the United States. And I have a dedication to where I live, New York City, Queens, my neighborhood, specifically my home. You know, you get drilled with this. And, you know, in schools there was always that thing. I know growing up, it was, you know, you pledge allegiance, you sing the anthem, and, you know, you go about your day because you were giving your dedication and your allegiance to where you are. And a part of that has been twisted and perverted, because really you need to have a dedication to you. You need to have a dedication to your creator, where your rights come from. And they didn't teach us that in school. They taught us the Constitution. They taught us about the wars. They taught us about everything else, where this country came from, but didn't say how important it is that you, the man, the woman, the young man, the young woman, the child, that you're the reason this country exists, that there is nothing else in this country without us. And so with dejure, and I know what I'm learning with dejure and what I'm showing my son, the next generation, is that the power was always you. And once you become educated, you take that power back. You start exercising your rights. You start invoking and basically rebuking these people that, you know, are saying that they have a power over you, and they really don't. The only one authority that you need an answer to, quite honestly, and, you know, I could be backed up, I could, you know, be corrected. I feel the only authority that I answer to is my creator, my God. So for any man or woman or entity, corporation or company or any of this that thinks, oh, well, I have, you know, an authority over you, well, we have to check that. So with dejure, and if more young people were to come to this, I don't want to say it'd be a difficulty, but it would definitely be a change from what they received in school, because school is not teaching this. The education system, especially the DOE, and we know the education system across this country is flawed, and it's being turned into a circus, three rings, big apple, big top circus. It's poisoning the mind. So when you do introduce something like this, yes, they have prepped the young mind to resist authority. That's cool, but you're resisting it to do what? To be placed in involuntary kidnapping, you know, to be taken away and you not know why you were taken away. Like it just puts you in a predicament. They're setting up young people to be placed in a predicament to stay in the system. But once you learn exactly what you need about your rights that were already yours once you took your first breath, there is no going back into them. There is no need to be in a revolving door, the, you know, lifetime subscription of being abused by an authoritarian government. It would never happen. So when a young mind, a mind that's easily molded, a mind that's impressionable, understands this, there'll be a level of power that comes back to us, you know, the generations before, that this new generation can help push forward, because it's always been about the children. That's why they go so hard after the children. That's why they do the things that they do, and you know, put their minds in other places and worry about, oh, well, you need, you know, your rights for this, and oh, they should have this. They're just filling their minds with things that are useless, to be quite honest. Who cares about what you're doing, you know, with your private life? No one cares. No one, and just like Andrea says, as long as it doesn't harm the next man or woman, really doesn't matter, you know. But they've come for the children, and de jure is so important. To me, I feel it's so important as, you know, a woman who was an educator in the schools with the DOE. I know while I was there, I may not have known de jure, but I know I was teaching empowerment. I was teaching, you know, self-awareness and understanding that you have to protect yourself, that it's you and your rights, and what's happening to you matters. So, you know, I would love to see that. I would love to see that happen for the youth. I would love to see the empowerment and true empowerment, not this false idea that you're fighting for this, ghost of a shell of a battle. No, you need to start really buckling down and demanding respect. I even had to change the vocabulary that I use because I've been protesting and rallying and doing stuff since 2020. Was all involved in that. And I used to say that too. I have constitutional rights. And the Constitution and this. And I mean, I was really willing to throw down for the Constitution until I learned exactly what the Constitution does. Now, I don't regret any of that because I know I still was going down that road of understanding that my rights and my freedoms were not to be trampled upon by government. But now I know better on how to express that to empower men and women around me to know, take your power back. Take it back, because it never was the government. It never was anyone who was selected in office, because we obviously understand that elections don't work. I was even in all of that, running around trying to push people to vote, go this, vote red, and I was part of what I call loyalty politics. I had a loyalty to politics, which is the worst loyalty to have, because they're all in it. They're all in on it, and they're all coming for the children. And that's what makes the youth the most important. If there could be outreach and however it has to happen. And I mean, this platform, what you're doing and what you have here right now, if there are, young people listening out, hear my voice. Know that your voice matters. 2, what happens to you is important. And 3, you can do something about it. You can stand in your rights that you were given to you by your creator from the day you drew your first breath. And with that, I yield.
Powerful statements. I just want to say on top of what you're saying, it's gonna happen. Like, I mean, it's happening right now. Like, with people are just becoming so much more conscious, and we're not in a sleep. It's not sleep time anymore. Sleep time is over. It's all about the awakening now. It's all about people waking up and educating themselves and gaining the true knowledge, going deeper in their spirituality, just becoming a better person, as well. And I think I want to say as well, it was no mistake on your end as far as like, being ready to go down for the Constitution, or being ready to throw down, for the Constitution, because that's what you knew at that time. You knew you had to higher your understanding for that, but then you stepped right on the plateau immediately. It's only been, a couple of years, and you right into higher places. And I think this education is the true freedom.
I just want to commend everyone for doing this. This is really big. This is really huge. And you guys are, whether you know it or not, because since everyone looks at New York, you guys are helping to save the nation and eventually the world.
We really appreciate you guys, because you are opening up a platform to get this more exposed. We're very passionate about what we do. This is something that, is very near and dear to us, especially when we understand that this can make all the difference for our kids, for your kids, for, the children in every single county, not even in New York, but just, across the board. Because we all know what starts in New York tends to trickle down the rest of the states. So if we could nip it here, if we can set the stance here, if we can, be of substance here, then this can be something that'll spark that very same thought process to, like, let me, get the knowledge and get the education to do whatever it is that New York is doing on a nationwide scale. When I first got into the du jour, let me tell you something. The last thing I even was interested in was politics or law, legal, the courts, the judicial system. That wasn't something that I was interested in finding out about at all. Let alone be a part of something like this. But once I came across the du jour and I got educated and I started getting in these Zooms and I started, getting in tune with what they really doing here, which is something beyond voting every 4 years. For one, it's a complete alternative solution, or at least, attempt to a solid solution of substance here that we can all understand over time with ease, just the same way that we got from first grade to second grade to fifth grade to 12th grade. It's the same kind of thing here. We do have some stuff that we got to unlearn. That's definitely not a question. There are some things that we have to, like, for example, person. How many of us in this room even peeped what Andrea was talking about earlier when she corrected herself when it came to addressing man and women as a person? Because we're not a person. We are the people. We are man or woman of the land. And we don't have children. We have sons and daughters. So is terminology like this that once we understand and get to grips of the power of vocabulary, especially when it comes to their systems and their courts, is that crucial, because we can, without even knowing, put ourselves in a jurisdiction that is theirs. And now here comes CPS around the corner, down the block, trying to kidnap your child. So this is the type of time knowledge that we teach up in these Zooms. We do have these doc meetings up, weekly. And let me tell y'all, we be up in these rooms sometimes to past midnight, researching, talking, looking up U.S. codes and everything like that. So, some of us are mothers and fathers and have our own, full-time, two jobs, whatever we have in addition to this, but we're that serious and dedicated to the de jure, and anybody can be a part of the de jure. And even when it comes to a lot of the templates that we have there, you don't have to necessarily be a part of the de jure to get any of that done. If you wanted to send us an affidavit, you don't have to be a member. So that's why we're on this platform. We're trying to put that out there. We need as many affidavits as possible. And all the templates, we provide, we have on deck. We even show other people from other, counties that are currently establishing how to do the same.
May I just add to that, to what Taneri just said?
Sure.
When it comes to these affidavits, it doesn't sound like it's powerful, but I'm going to tell you right now, they are. It seems like it's just, you're just writing another little, something, you documenting something, but your words are powerful. When you put it down on a piece of paper, them four corners, it leads to change. And I just was thinking to myself, I'm going to have my son write an affidavit. If there are young people, young men and women right now listening, you can write an affidavit. If your mother, your father was affected by this, it affected you.